Today, it's June, which means it's Pride Month, and lots of other things, which also happen in June. This is ChillPoint.
One of those things I think is that my allergies get worse.
Oh, so
You're
not
saying
like good things.
you're allergic to Pride? Is that what you're
That's
saying?
not what I'm saying. I'm not allergic to rainbows at all.
Did they test you for that?
No, I don't think they did, but I have seen many a rainbow.
Do they like feed you Skittles or something?
No,
Like, how do you test the rainbow?
I was playing
allergy?
Tears of the Kingdom, and it stopped raining, and there were double rainbows.
And you didn't go, "Hoot!"
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Didn't just immediately
Sure.
start sneezing. So I'm like, that's good. That surprised me.
That you didn't start sneezing?
No, it surprised me that I was like, what? There's two rainbows. Damn, that's cool. Okay. No idea whether or not they have some sort of advanced weather simulation to be like, oh, they'll only happen sometimes based on the ambient whatever. I think it's just that if you're in
Also,
certain regions.
the stream just die immediately?
Died immediately, apparently.
For fuck's sake. Today, it's June, and that means everything is working perfectly. This is ChillPoint.
Not everything.
Not everything.
Yeah, for example, my immune system. So it turns out that my allergies persist all the way through June.
Aren't allergies generally like the immune system overreacting?
That's
though?
a good point.
Doesn't that mean
Yeah, but it
your
means
immune
it's-
system is
it's-
working? It's
it's
just it's not
too
doing
active.
what you don't want it to.
Yeah, it's doing the things I don't want it to. Yeah. I would like it to stop doing that. But as previously established, not allergic to rainbows.
Yay.
Yay.
You know, when I said start over, I meant actually
No,
start
I'm
over.
gonna
But
get-
now I'm keeping everything.
Getting all the good stuff. The in Tears of the Kingdom, I found a region that when it stops raining, you get two rainbows. You get a double rainbow, which is very cool.
That's only in one region of...
I've only seen it in one region. I mean, I don't think you can get it in Hebra because it's just always snowing. So, yeah. But in I think it was in Lurlen or
I think
something.
you're just not trying hard enough.
Maybe that's the problem. I need to sit there and wait for the snow to stop. But.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to ChillPoint, show where we talk about video game news, and today we're doing it at a slightly different time than we normally do it, and a slightly different day. We were preempted on Friday, so welcome to Sunday ChillPoint. A few more, because this is like a couple days later than we usually do it. Theoretically, some different other news has happened in the world of video games since the episode of Checkpoint, but I haven't been paying that close attention, so we probably are not going to address too much of it.
Not everything you want will be something we talk about.
Like there was that.
That's just a
but maybe
standard.
if there's something, if something important is happening, we will try to catch it in the next Checkpoint episode.
There was that late breaking story about Bobby Kotick being a huge dick.
I mean, we caught that.
I mean, we sort of caught that in Checkpoint.
But what I mean is, I don't think anything's changed in the news cycle.
I do.
No, he's still a big dick.
I do want to acknowledge, even though I think the three of us don't pay attention to any of it, so it's not maybe a thing for us, but I do want to acknowledge that we do know that, and that it is sad for those of you who are going to miss it, that Baseball is gone now.
Yes, that is big gaming news, despite the fact it's not really video game news.
Yeah, it's close enough for my purposes.
It's very close. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, video game adjacent.
I guess if you run it's a digital game, right? And you run it on the internet, and it's like it is curated by a studio of people, and yeah, I guess it is fair.
But yeah, it's a shame that it didn't. Yeah, they weren't able to make it work in a sustainable way.
That was
what they wrote in the game band wrote as their statement, was that they could not keep Baseball the way it was, true to itself, and make enough money to financially support it.
Right. Yeah.
And thus, a lot of people are now looking for some new jobs as well.
It's too bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the episode of Checkpoint that did go up on last Thursday, which started off talking about the Overwatch Pride announcements.
Yes.
Which, I mean, for all the many faults of Blizzard, Overwatch has tried to be quite inclusive.
Yeah.
To an extent, like I would say to a greater extent than is like sort of strictly required.
Yes, that's fair.
Like by the whatever that if like
They don't do token characters. Like they don't do
Yeah.
like this one is the gay one. Like there's not that kind of thing. It's like
yeah, it was like there's a big outcry, so I guess we'll do one person. But they've actually been pretty proactive about bringing in people of various alternative sexualities and different ethnicities, and trying to keep things as diverse as
it's not all default straight white guy.
they've had a big roster too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, of course, with Overwatch and games like it, a lot of that is not subtext, but sort of external
Yeah.
to the game itself.
Well, that means that they don't have to like.
There's a few like in-game
Which means it's lore.
barks, but
Well, I was going to say it means that they don't have to try so hard to redo certain things for the countries where that's going to be illegal, and they still want to sell their game in that country.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, they have now sort of announced, not actually announced, but effectively announced that Farah and Baptiste is bisexual, Farah is lesbian. And I say not announced because they didn't be like, now this person
No.
is. It's just they released the whole thing of like pride, not flags, but like nameplates for all sorts for different things, and the one for Baptiste like has his silhouette and it's got the bisexual colors.
Yeah.
And the same with
I was
Farah.
going to say our one of the things that our YouTube comments were littered with for the episode of Checkpoint was that Farah's always been a lesbian,
Yes.
Right.
and everyone's always known that. And because I don't pay attention to Overwatch, I can't tell if that's just fandom.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is I'm like, I
Yeah,
know
where
that
the
there's
sort of
yeah.
and because the sort of canon stuff for Overwatch is relatively sparse.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to see where the fanon and canon line is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, when people are sort of reading between the lines, and or they hear a certain relationship between them, whatever.
And writers and developers have that kind of thing going on where it's like internally to the development process, someone will have made a decision when they're developing story for a certain character. They'll be like, I'm deciding this, and they make that decision. And they're like, in my mind, I know that that's what this person has a specific trait of some
Right.
sort I want to see play its way out, which is how I'm going to write them. But I'm not going to write them as being like, look at me, I'm so-and-so, like that kind of thing. It's like, it's written in a more subtle way to be like, this is the kind of attitude I want them to have. This is the kind of approach to life that I want them to have. And it's going to come through this lens that you see. I'm thinking...
And that might not have necessarily, made it all the way through all the different levels of editorial,
right. And it's like I mean, the thing that I'm thinking of specifically is how we learned from She-Ra that one of the writers specifically was like, I think we can write Entrapta as on the autistic spectrum somewhere, and therefore that's going to inform my writing of her. And it's like, okay, if I'm doing that, and then they start having discussions in the writers' room, they're like, yeah, well, we don't have to come right out and say anything about that in the show. All we have to do is just write her in a way that seems realistic for that
There's
that character.
there's plenty of things that I've read where I read fandoms where people say I associate this character with being this way or being whatever, and even when the writers come out and they're like, no, we never intended
was never
that.
our
And
intention.
and in fact, they're not or whatever. And like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
And the fact
And-
that somebody reads that's good.
Yeah, but it's also like it feels like you've captured a bit of my experience or a bit of
Yeah.
a relatable experience. And I think it's
And-
positive to say they're like that.
And I think that is totally like I think that's a good. I think it's okay to have that as a sort of it's like you can identify with a character, you feel like that person, that feels very familiar to me.
Yes.
What that person is experiencing. I think you can say that without being like, that person is definitely, X neurodivergent thing.
Right. And
And that's okay too. Like, and the fact whether or not they are canonically whatever
X, yeah.
it doesn't matter for the purposes of whether that doesn't change whether you identified with the person or
Yeah.
not.
What's nice is when you see that there's an official, that it's like when you do see that the intention from the writers, from the developers, from the people who are making the product and the story and everything else, when you do see that your media is reflecting those things officially, that they're saying, oh yeah, we've always intended for that to be the case, or we are coming right out and saying this, so there is no ambiguity about how people feel. Like Farah is a lesbian. Here is her nameplate. Here are the colors. That nobody can actually say anymore. It's like, well, it's ambiguous, and I want to taste. Like, no, you know what?
Right.
We don't get to do that. Everyone gets to decide who they are, and Farah has decided this because we get to write Farah, so we get to decide what she is, and so therefore we're done.
And in particular, I mean, sexuality is one aspect, but particularly in terms of like the neurodivergent stuff, whether it's autism or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there is also the aspect of like if you go at it from the other side, like if you're like this character is autistic.
Yeah, I need to write one into the story.
Now,
Yeah.
now everything that they do is sort of through that lens. If we're talking about like lots of people like Big Bang Theory, like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory or Abed on Community.
Yeah.
Both characters which people have associated with autism, but I believe neither are canonically.
Yeah, no one ever comes
It's
right out
not
and says
stated
it.
or anything.
Yeah, which is great. I think that's fine, because there's both of them have, because all aspects of the character don't have to embody whatever particular thing.
No,
Yeah.
but it's also, I think, more true to form in some ways that it can be really hard to get tested, especially as an adult.
Yeah.
So to have adults acting in specific ways, and even if they don't know, because they might not,
And I know
I think is worth having. I think
That's
it's
true,
worth
yeah.
to have both.
Yeah, and we're not trying to draw a parallel between like, being autistic is like being not straight. Like it's like not trying to draw any
Queer.
sort of
The
things
word
about
is
that.
queer.
Yeah, queer. That's right.
We have a word.
Okay,
it's
and
queer.
It's weird, right? Because I'm like, I like that word, and I had some people a little while ago be like, but we don't refer to the queer community as the queer community, like that kind of thing of like, please don't use that word. And I'm like, I don't know if I should or if I shouldn't, or because it is an umbrella term or it's not an umbrella term.
It depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah,
there's some
right?
people who really don't like the use of that word. They prefer LGBTQ, or they don't want an umbrella term at all.
Yeah.
There are other people who, especially if you're not really sure, you don't really like the labels that you don't want to identify with. They prefer queer.
Yeah.
So it really depends on who you're talking to in the end.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
the word. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it's spelled. I like the way, like it kind of just, it's like, I like this. This is good.
But yeah, because some people might like it, doesn't necessarily mean everyone has to.
yeah.
Whatever.
It's true.
Do identify yourself however you choose to, and it is all great.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the Overwatch folks. So yeah, I was pretty happy with the when I first posted this story, this idea that they're redecorating the Midtown map to look like a pride parade has like just gone through.
Yeah.
So there's like confetti and different things.
I
all over
love the
place.
rainbow sidewalks.
Yeah, rainbow sidewalks.
Crosswalks, rather, yeah.
a bunch of newly outed queer folks fighting in the aftermath of the Pride Parade has a certain truth to it as well.
Yeah, you get out there, you're a little bit hopped up on the Pride. You've maybe had a couple too many Bud Light, and you're like, come on, fucking yeah, let's do some shit. Yeah, that kind of attitude. I think not the whole like they're fighting each other in the streets. I don't think that was the idea. I think it's more like getting all ramped, like just. But yeah,
I mean, every sporting event I've ever seen, it just regardless of who wins or loses, just ends up with people fighting in the streets. Apparently,
Yeah.
It's true.
So I assume
Fans fighting each other.
I kind of assume parades are like that
Yeah.
too. Any big event, really.
We've definitely had rainbow crosswalks around here
Yep.
a few times.
yeah.
Yeah, they usually do them around this time of year.
They're always a little weird because the paint that they use for crosswalks is not like really temporary.
Yeah, it's
paint.
very permanent. Yeah.
So you sort of end up with so it just sort of stays and then kind of gets faded, and then
Yeah.
they try to do like other stuff.
There's one at the university at crossing the ring road between the Clary Hugh building and the bookstore essentially, which was great. They did that one. Some
got one downtown.
assholes showed up in the middle of the night and tried to run paint on it. Like they ran their tires on it to try to deface it, and people were like, "It's not going away, man!" Like, it's like they're
yeah.
there. And it's like, "Oh, they did the thing," and it's like, "Yeah, but you know what? It's still there. You came up and you tried to do a thing, and it's like it's still there, my dude. You can't get rid of it." Like, and there's the one downtown by City Hall. You know, it's like, and then that kind of touched off a more thing in Victoria about like, we should actually do decorative crosswalks because they look so cool.
They do.
And so they started doing other ones on Blanchard, like not different pride flags and stuff like that, but just
that's
different.
too bad. Like
Yeah.
I would love
The
to see
Ace Walk, yeah.
I would. I'd love to see an Ace Walk
Yeah.
or a Trans
But they-
Walk or
Yeah.
like a bunch of different
They,
sidewalk
yeah,
ones.
but they put sort of these like decorative things sort of around the outside, which are nice.
Yeah.
But it frustrates me that they have this like kind of shell design,
Yeah.
which has clearly been like shrunk and extended, and is like, so the thing that's like permanently drawn onto the road is like clearly like has been like Photoshop distorted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because it's an arc, right? So it's really obvious that it's been stretched.
Yeah. Which is like, it's the
Oh, for fuck.
the street.
Stream is
Yeah.
dead again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Something, I don't know what with OBS.
This
Do we just move into Studio A? We could do that.
This is gonna be
Yeah.
be a manual edit that I have to deal with, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, the local recording has been going. But
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it'll just be fine.
Yeah. Not everybody in.
Hey, everybody.
Not everybody in every department at the city, City Works department is not going to have graphic designers on staff everywhere, clearly. Or what happened was that a graphic designer actually designed the crosswalk and was like, "Here's what I think it should look like," and then made
And
the
then
design.
they were like trying to fit it into the space.
And they were like, "Yeah, shit doesn't work. Okay, well, crush it like this and do it like that." And I bet you every day that designer crosses that crosswalk.
And they're like, we made it just like in your drawings.
Yeah. No, you didn't. You're supposed to repeat it. God damn it! Why didn't you give me the proper measurements? And it's
Oh,
like-
you didn't. They didn't actually hear the.
Oh, they did not. Okay.
So the issue we had was that the issue I had was that there's the shell design on the side of the crosswalks. That is quite nice, but it's like an arch. So it's really obvious that they squished it and stretched it to fit into the space,
Yeah, they didn't obey the aspect ratio.
and so it just looks bad. Anyway, yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I don't know what's going on with OBS and stuff, but anyway.
Hopefully, it won't happen again.
Yeah, but if it does, please do say so in chat that it's happening because it's our best way of knowing.
I think it is important to note, as it says in the story, that they wanted to that they said this is an employee-driven narrative.
right.
there's like an LGBT focus group or whatever.
An employees working group or alliance of some sort.
Yeah, whatever is sort of like an internal sort of breakout group within Blizzard.
Yeah.
That apparently has been sort of advising them on this stuff, and been adding, and so a bunch of the there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be donated and things. So
Okay.
It's cool.
yeah, which and the other aspect, the other point of this, which I mentioned when I first put this story in, is it's sad that we're at the point now that whenever Blizzard announces something that is like positive, and we're dead again. Okay, maybe we do need to go into the
All right, let's do that.
What the fuck? Okay.
I'll get some chairs. I'll make sure we have chairs.
Hey everybody,
Great.
we are in Studio A. Luckily, we have emergency backup studio. Here's the studio we prepared earlier. So I guess we'll figure out what the heck is going on. Yeah, let's
Just so that we don't all have to like be
Crowd in.
that squished.
wait, I should be able to
It should be.
make
Yeah.
it wide
Yeah, there
angle.
we go.
Hey,
That's
there we go.
That's a little more comfortable.
Hey.
Excuse me.
So we were talking about Overwatch, but the next thing, which is also sort of peripherally, or I guess it's also Blizzard related, is Diablo 4, which just came out.
Right.
I can take these off because I don't need to wear
You
them.
don't really need them now.
And next thing about so Diablo 4, which people seem to be really enjoying, those who aren't playing
it just
Legend of Zelda.
Came out like a couple days ago,
Yeah.
earlier this week. Depending on when you start your week.
Depending on when you start your week. And the before it came out, so we did this. There was this Twitter thread of a person talking about this Diablo 4 Q&A that was put up on the Future Games Show channel, and how they were like asking these questions, and initially the questions seemed like a little bit suspect because they were, why? How are you so awesome?
Yes,
Did you,
absolutely.
Did you grabbed screenshots from the actual
Yeah,
question thing? Because those were terrible to look at.
yeah, they were not good.
Whoever was in charge of their graphics department,
Oh, yeah.
shame on you.
Oh yeah. Unreadable.
And so there's this Twitter thread where a person was like, that seemed odd. Let's see, because it not only said the username, but it was like this person from Reddit or this person from Twitter. Let's look up those users, and like all of the users were either didn't exist or were accounts that had only tweeted like once or never posted anything.
And not even the question itself.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like somebody created it that day and then put the question in there, which you could believe somebody might do, but yeah.
No, like they didn't even do that. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like they didn't try to cover their tracks by like creating the account.
No.
Although apparently one or two of them had been created in the meantime by trolls who
Yes.
were like, ha 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 ha.
Now I own that name. Yes.
And so, they did this and there was nothing. And then after a little bit, they did come out with a statement being like, so these questions were these were real questions that were sourced from both our internal,
we put up a post on Twitter and said, please ask your questions.
Yeah, so both from fans and also from like internal people from the Future Game Show.
Yeah.
But some of the people asked questions wanted to be anonymous, so we generated usernames, and it's like
It's a little hard to believe.
But it's such a weird like own goal. It's like, why put a name on it at all?
Just don't put names on it, or
And it's like just put the question. Like some of them were, and like some of them were kind of questionable questions, as in like
or make up names and not usernames.
or
like,
just say a user from Twitter asks.
yeah, that is a pretty standard
Yeah,
thing,
a
right?
user from Reddit asks.
there's so many ways that they could have done it that would have been like fine. Like even if the questions were like a little bit off, like a little, but it would have been, sure, it's a PR thing. It's not a big deal. It's the lying part that they got hit for, right?
Well, yes, especially because in the whole point of PR is to do a little bit of a spin on things to make you look the best that you can look, right? It's like taking selfies. You're trying to take a good selfie.
Yeah.
But when we do Askler, we sometimes we edit a piece out of the question because it's like that whole question doesn't fit on the screen. We need to get to the actual question.
Sure.
Things like that.
But like, it's when the over the last several years, we've come to realize that there are some people who take PR as we just directly lie to everyone, which muddies the waters, and then you don't trust any of it, and maybe you shouldn't anyway. But to see it's like, oh well, we have proof that you lied to us, doesn't help you.
It's lying about, but it's not even lying about the thing that they're actually doing the PR about, right?
No.
It's like getting caught lying about something completely different, and it's just like, why lie about that?
Yeah.
Why do you feel the need to lie? Anyway.
Yeah, because even saying, "Oh, we anonymized the names," it's like I don't think you did, because some of those names, like they're they didn't follow a specific context, right? You just kind of, it's like if we made up a name and somebody registered the account later, it's like, but you didn't. You literally took a Twitter account that was over a year old that has never been used, and you've used that person's name from it. Why do that? That doesn't sound like you randomized the name at all. It sounds like what you did is you went looking for an account that didn't have anything attached to it. And I don't get that either.
And like we've, not we sometimes when we're doing not necessarily like Q&A stuff, but like if we're doing a thing where we're answering questions, sometimes there'll be like a bunch of people asking similar questions, and so you can't just be like, lots of people ask this question and then answer it without having to be like, without saying a specific person. Or there's just so many ways that you could do it in a smoother way.
There's a bit of moderation that happens when you get questions. Like when Beach brought up Askler, it's like, we have the list. Everybody looks through them, picks which ones they're comfortable answering, and so forth. And sometimes we alter. Most of the time, I'm just altering your grammar so you'll look a lot better than you think.
Yeah, like it's not. I don't think it's any big surprise to any revelation that we go through the questions for Askler and do which
so we
ones.
can put them on screen,
and so we answer the ones that we want to answer.
Yep.
It's not like a gotcha interview. It's it's a Q&A session.
No, if we ever do that, that's a hell of an own goal on ourselves.
Yeah.
If we ever do that.
And that's true of like any of these like pre-recorded things that get set up. Questions are filtered. Even at like a lot of panels these days, people have to like tell the person what their question's going to be before they get onto the microphone.
Right.
To a degree, like it's still it's a PR thing, right?
And then you always, I love seeing now Q&A session, like big convention Q&A sessions, when somebody comes up to the mic and they've gone through the vetting process, and then they start with, this is more of a comment than a question. And everyone goes like, Anyway. And yeah, actually, as Maricat points out, and I think it's not even like I think this is probably entirely true, that the Blizzard folks might not have known that those weren't real. Like they might not have, they probably didn't demand that they do these questions.
Chances are good if you're the one who's having questions asked, that's going and finding out if any of those questions were made by real people or made up, or probably not part of the job you're doing. That's somebody else's job.
So.
Future games show team particularly.
Yeah. Anyway.
That happened.
Yeah. So there's this story about 6 Days in Fallujah. I think
we did not think would ever come back.
yeah.
I didn't even know it was coming back
I
until
think-
the story happened.
I didn't actually go back and check, but I wouldn't be surprised if we touched on it when it originally came out, when the announcement was for the original version of the game back in 2009.
We likely would have done. I could see us having done a thing when they tried to do that whole like our game has nothing to do with politics, because that was a big thing across the internet.
I remember
at
that,
point.
yeah.
So
But yeah, it's so the interesting thing, the part I'd like to sort of add to this thing, which has come from seeing the comments on this in the YouTube, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that I saw quite a few people talking about that the original version of this back in 2009 with Konami and whoever it was who were working on the original one actually apparently had some interesting ideas behind it, and they were working with veterans of the conflict to try to present it in a way that would be respectful. Obviously, combination of whatever the didn't work, or people weren't ready to handle that. But I saw an interesting number of people in the YouTube comments being like, this actually saying that like the original version of this back in 2009 I found kind of interesting, and I actually pre-ordered it. And so I was sad when it got canceled. This version I am not interested in, and it's frustrating. But because like the politics thing, that was back in 2021. So like that's this new version. That wasn't the original thing. But so I don't know, maybe there could have been some nuance there. Still,
what was the original 2009?
2009, so it was 5 years after the conflict. That's pretty tough.
Which is pretty, that's a rough.
Like that's
I'm also trying to remember what the gaming space was like in 2009.
I mean, they were all still really full of first-person shooters. All the war shooters were still war shooters have always been a thing. I guess like Call of Duty and Battlefield and like that kind of stuff. It's like war shooters were always a thing. And like we're gonna take something ripped from the headlines. Definitely is what it felt like.
And they tend to be, but I mean, most shooters either tend to be like World War II or a conflict that there isn't so much still sort of recent memory of.
Exactly, yeah.
Or
the wound is not fresh.
Or there are some, there's the Modern Warfare ones that are dealing with conflicts that are either recent or still ongoing, but they tend to sort of make it more sort of
genericize it.
Yeah, make it more sort of about that conflict as opposed to like this specific battle that a lot of people participated in and have to deal with the consequences of.
And when I heard of this, and it's funny because in chat, Grass Vortex brought this up as well. It's like when I heard of this initially, my first thoughts was, Spec Ops: The Line.
Right.
Like I was like, you're gonna try to create a game based around a very modern, like a very like modern situations, things that are happening right now or things that just happened, and then it sounds like what you want to do is you want to create a very ambiguous experience. And it's like, we're gonna make you think that your cast is the hero, but maybe you're acting as the villain, or maybe there are no heroes and villains in this situation, or maybe both sides are the villain in this situation, and it's like, or people are acting villainously and people are acting heroically, and it's like, right, so you're going to try to blur as much as you can because you want people to feel ambiguous about the situation. You want them to feel like it's like, I should not be doing this, or maybe it is important that I am doing this, or maybe you invite some real conversation around something like this. And yeah, it just, I remember the conversations that we at least were having about this, I think, like after the fact, because we weren't here in 2009 when they announced the thing, but like, But when it got mentioned, I think in and around the office a couple of times, that it did really feel like was a bad idea, because maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but there is that whole thing of, hey, it's not a political thing. I'm like, if you are approaching the media by saying that your game about a specific political conflict is not a political game, then I don't know what to tell you, man, because you seem to not have a very good idea of either both the situation and what your game is going to introduce.
I think that's where most of the outcry on the internet was happening.
Yeah.
At that time was they said it wasn't political, and I'm trying to recall what the gaming space was like in 2009, because, like we say, Spec Ops: The Line had a story that was interesting and was done with a thing.
It was ambiguous.
Maybe they could have done that then. But now we're in 2023.
Yeah.
Now we're in 2021. Do you know, in 2009 we hadn't had Gamergate yet?
Yeah, that's true.
Right, and now we're in like 2023, and it's like we've had Gamergate, we've had a pandemic, and really all we've talked about in this story is the marketing says they were afraid of failure.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, because we don't really, like, even Grimes, like, what does it mean that you're gonna play from the perspective of an Iraqi civilian?
Right. It's like, what the heck? Like, that's one of those things, and like there's the screenshot that I put in the video is very true, that if you go to whatever 6daysinfallujah.com or whatever the website is for the game, one of the little things at the bottom is why. That's one of the questions that they know they're going to get asked, and
it's a fair thing to answer.
And they try to answer that in terms of, they have stuff about how they want to show the conflict and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if this actually does come out.
First, it needs to come out.
It's going into early access in July, and then we'll see if there actually is any room for.
And then it'll depend on how that all worked out. Marketing wise, it's not. It seems weird. Some of the marketing seems weird.
Yeah, I feel like.
But that doesn't necessarily mean the game is bad.
In a lot of ways, though, it seems like regardless of what their intention is, the necessities of gameplay are going to subvert it. Like, you can't. Well, unless you are making sort of an art game, or like you're making a sort of a statement game.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to make a, relatively mainstream first-person shooter experience,
It seems iffy.
that just, regenerating life, health packs, tons of ammo, all squad shooting, like a lot of the sort of gameplay mechanics are gonna fight you on that. And I don't think there's any way that they can do that.
You can think of this generously and say that if this is a different studio name, but it could comprise one or some of the same people who were working on it at the initial studio that folded, and you could say that, we've had 15 years to think about this, and we've really, this idea has persisted as something that we think is worth exploring in a way, or this is like, I've still had an idea of doing a game that's like this, and when I come back to it, I'm still thinking that yes, this title and this setting is the best way to explore this idea that I've had. And I'm like, well, you've had 15 years and the initial failure of it to think about whether or not it was worth to do it, and if that is the case, then you still think that trading on the name is going to give you the exposure you need to get this idea out into the world. Okay, because it has that kind of like, not everybody gets second chances. You are generating your own second chance for something. You think there's a nugget here of something that's important, and now you're going to put it into early access so people have an opportunity to get in and actually see what it's about. But also you need to then raise some money. I guess you can finish the construction of this game.
A first-person early access game is going to focus on the multiplayer portion.
Probably. I mean, if this turns out to be an extraction shooter, like it's or a boomer shooter or some sort of other weird ass thing, right? It's like, what are you hoping to accomplish here?
Okay, serious. What is a boomer shooter?
Yeah, I have no idea what that is. I
And
just
why
like
are you
saying
saying it?
I just like saying it.
Boomer shooter is like Doom or something.
It's
like,
the old,
Is it
old
just
style
is
shooter.
it
Yeah.
older?
Cool.
It's just an old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a game that boomers didn't play.
It's Doom, and so boomer shooter in the modern parlance would be games that are trying to get that same kind of feel.
Okay, but they're
Yeah.
games from like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
which is technically not boomer, but
Sure isn't.
but it sounds better. Boomer now just means old person.
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doomer
okay.
shooter I like way better.
Doom's 30 years. Well, whatever.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
To
Much more important story.
the
Oh, goodness. Really?
Judging from the length.
the story that again, an interesting one. Lots of comments in the comments about the Dolphin emulator being taken off of Steam, and the way the narrative about that starts kind of twisting the more you look at it, which I found quite interesting. This idea of that, and you know, let's be clear. Nintendo has never been supportive of emulation efforts.
Well,
That's certainly
That's hard to say, right? Like it's like they've never been supportive of people pirating their games.
yeah.
You know, that's
Never.
you know, and that's fair.
And they've been pretty active taking out, you know, people providing ROMs and all that
Exactly,
kind of
yeah. So that is a little, that again is a little bit different from the idea of are they supportive of
Outright
emulation or not? I mean,
emulation.
they have emulators built right into NSO.
Switch Online is basically
That is
all
straight up.
done through emulation.
stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But there's the not being supportive of people using emulators to take your stuff is a lot different than using emulators to sell things.
Yes, exactly.
The concept of an emulator is fine, but yeah, great. A lot of the stuff is gray area. But this idea that Nintendo kind of put the kibosh on Dolphin in the Steam thing appears to be somewhat erroneous in that apparently Steam actually, or Valve.
The story we've been learning is not exactly the story that occurred, and this was an attempt, like my thing was an essay to detail here's what we know about what actually happened, not here's how you should feel about it one way or the other, but please understand that if we're going to have a conversation about anything, we should all start with the facts as they should be represented. And in fact, Dolphin went back and changed their thing on their page, not because of anything I did. They had already changed it by the time I did the story. But most news outlets did not change their stories because they did it based on Dolphin's initial press release being like, we got a cease and desist. It's like, that's not really what you got. You got something that is close to that, but you didn't really get anything. Valve asked for guidance from Nintendo because it is something that they know Nintendo is sensitive to, and Nintendo said, you came asking, and we have to say this. If you didn't come asking, who knows what might have happened, but because you asked me what I thought, I had to tell you the legal line on this. And then Valve was like, okay, what should we do? Well, we should do what we want, and it's ultimately up to us to make. It's ultimately we're going to be the ones who make the decisions, as opposed to turning to Dolphin and being like, "Hey, this is what we were told, and so now you need to make the decision." Valve made the decision. Does that mean Dolphin is dead? Absolutely not. Does it mean Dolphin's maybe more in trouble? You might assume that.
I mean,
But
that
the
would
guy
be-
who
But
was
it's-
working on it, one of the guys who's working on it is saying, I don't think it's in any more trouble than it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, as far as I know, this just puts
Yeah.
them back to their previous status quo, which is you can download it from their website.
Exactly.
They just can't do
yeah,
it
you
through
just
Steam.
don't have it on Steam.
And I think that Nintendo is, while they take a very, very tough legal stance, like they're saying, we are putting forth some arguments, not all their arguments, we're putting forth some arguments here to to state our position and state where we think things are going to go. I don't think they want to go to court over emulation. I don't think they're that keen to get that laid down in law because of what happened with Bleem. You know, I think a lot of big video game console companies especially are looking at this and being like, we saw what happened to Sony and Bleem and with the Connectix video game station and like all that kind of stuff. They're like, they saw those arguments start to play out and they're like, we might be in really big trouble if we try to start challenging this in the United States court of law. And I think therefore they're like, well, then what we would rather do is, if everything's going to be a gray area, then we're going to play in that gray area too, and you have to make a decision about how comfortable you are with developing a project or supporting a project, like publishing a project, like that kind of idea. And yeah, this is where we live with emulation. We live in a gray area, and there's such a big conversation to be had about the benefits of it, but also the negative aspects of it. And that's what this was. This was an essay to say that I like Dolphin, but also we realize that it's not a legal thing, and therefore we have to accept the realities of those things, and we have to wait until anyone's willing to go to court over it to say, let's have a black and white decision made about it.
There was a I think Microsoft or Nintendo and some of these other video game companies are also a lot of their experience comes from like commercial cloning systems that used to be a bigger issue. Where people were making either fake games or copying their games or doing that kind of stuff. So sort of coming at it from that perspective. I remember, I don't know, maybe I talked about this before, but apparently I love that there's a thing in the original Game Boy ROM in order to run a Game Boy game, it does a pixel check of the Nintendo logo. Yeah. That goes like bling, Nintendo. One of the things that the Game Boy does when it boots up is it checks to see whether the words Nintendo appear exactly like that, like the pixel perfect thing, which is interesting because it's something that is entirely that is extremely easy to, if you were a faker, fake.
Yes.
But the idea, and I don't think this was ever actually tested in law.
No.
But the idea was that by putting that check in, it forced anybody making a fake thing to put the Nintendo logo in their source code somewhere.
Yeah.
Which then would give Nintendo a reason that they could come after them from a copyright standpoint.
Yeah.
A trademark standpoint.
Yeah. And I had a Game Boy one time, my Game Boy, when it was failing, I would put a game cartridge in, and what would roll down the screen was a black bar instead of the thing that said Nintendo on it. And I don't know why it was doing that. To this day, I really don't know why it was failing in that way. But I put the thing in, and just a black bar would come down, and it would stop, and it would go ding, and then nothing would happen. The game would not load at that point.
Because it didn't have the thing.
Because that's the anti-piracy thing, is that it's like, well, your logo isn't loading correctly. So whatever was happening on the game board or in the probably one of the ROM chips, is that somehow that logo got corrupted, and so what got read instead was just a black bar. And like a black bar that was the same size as the Nintendo logo itself, right? Like it was the same dimensions and everything. But because it didn't match what was supposed to be generated, it just failed. So I had to send that into Nintendo, and they fixed it and sent me a new one. It was very cool.
Yeah, I find the problem I have with any kind of conversation, especially online with emulation, is that, and I could see it within our own comments on ChillPoint, is it doesn't, the moment you bring up emulation, nobody cares about the actual conversation. They all just want to start talking about why they think it's okay that they do whatever they do.
Yeah.
And they want to bring up all those reasons and what they do. And they
everyone has a particular line that they have that's their own personal.
I saw some people who are like, Beach is wrong, and I'm like, emulation is absolutely whatever. And like, he never told you.
I never told you to stop, did I? I never said that you shouldn't do it. I said that I even like Dolphin, and I think it's great that it exists.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play games on Dolphin.
And I just like, it's not, there's no conversation happening. It's just people yelling that it's okay that I do what I do for reasons. Or my favorite is just, I'm going to yell out what is basically a meme of like, you should pirate everything because all corporations suck. And I'm like, all right, then do that. But you're not adding anything to a conversation. And I find it really irritating.
And people sort of conflating the legal versus the sort of ethical argument, right?
Yeah.
And also, lots of sort of armchair legal experts talking about what is an extremely complex and nuanced legal, some of which, which
you want
of
to go
course we
pirate
don't
all
know.
your stuff and go for it. I don't fucking care. I don't.
but
I don't.
Yeah, but also though,
I'm
and
not
I
gonna
know
hunt you down so I can judge you. I don't have that kind of time.
and to take this into the realm of I'm gonna act a little bit shitty here. If you got that angry about the fact that I said what I said, then I think those reasons are cutting a little too close to the bone for your own comfort. Like, if you're like, but Beach is wrong about this, and I should be allowed to do whatever I want, and I'm going to do the thing, and I'm being very generic here, right? I'm generalizing that hardcore. Beach didn't tell you anything about whether you should or you shouldn't. He's saying if you're going to like have a reaction to the story, at least understand what the fuck was going on in the story. That's all I want,
Look,
I don't go ahead and
pirate.
pirate your stuff. We are now soaking in a new world of streaming services are starting to suck.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And everyone's like, boy, maybe I need to get back on the piracy train. I'm like, I think that's probably a thing that's going to happen.
You want to hate? You want to hate on
be as comfortable as
Nintendo?
you got to be comfortable.
Go
with
ahead, hate on Nintendo. There's a million reasons to hate Nintendo that are not. They sent a DMCA to a thing that didn't happen.
They didn't send a DMCA to take
Exactly,
out notice.
but they didn't.
Yeah.
But if that's like your reason, I have to hate on them. Like, there's plenty of other reasons if you want to.
Yeah, and I always hear about all of them, don't I?
Sorry, I listen to some of that media.
Yeah.
They're not always wrong.
No, that's true.
Also, the legality of emulators also depends a lot on what aspects are included in the emulator.
Yeah, some of them are clean room things that are completely legally they are completely legal to run and do whatever like to run and operate and pretend to be that kind of hardware. Some of them have things in them where it's like they are circumventing something that's legal, and whether you think that thing that is legal is a good idea or not doesn't change the fact that whether it's legal or it's illegal. If you want to change the system, change the goddamn system. Mm-hmm. Don't sit around and bitch about the fact that I'm just going to be allowed to do a thing. That's the other thing. You
know what? Some people are right. There are laws that are just outright wrong and are not correct. But some people, when they start to go with that argument, are definitely going with that argument just because they want to do whatever they want.
There's that too.
Anyway.
Yes, please.
Let's move on to the very uncontroversial Riot Games.
Absolutely. Super uncontroversial.
Yeah. Riot Games, a company that everybody agrees on.
Paragon of the industry.
This is actually this is an interesting, and this, I don't know, it's possible there's an update on this story that I don't know, but anyway, where I last heard about this, so there is for League of Legends, the North American professional, was it the League Championship? The League Championship Series Players Association, which is a North American League of Legends player association union. I don't know if it's technically a union, but whatever. An association, collective of players, voted to walk out on and not participate or not be not allow the League Championship Series in North America to go ahead because all of the players wouldn't be there. Yeah. It's not like they decided not to participate in the League Championship Series. There wouldn't be any League Championship Series because there's nobody there.
Okay.
And so because the reasoning for that is because earlier in May, Riot Games announced that it was removing. So it was a couple things. They removed a mandate that required teams to fund
Amateur.
amateur or North American second tier development leagues
Okay.
Oh, okay.
that paid that sort of were a way to bring players into the
We could think of them as a farm team initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're playing at an amateur level, even though you're playing at an organized amateur level.
and then they also are dropping the number of players that were going to be the number of teams that were actually going to be allowed into the North American Championship. Where is it? So I'm just trying to figure this out. So they were I think they were dropping it to like 8 teams that were actually going to be in the championship rather than the previous number. They also have they dropped the rank requirement. They're trying to drop the rank requirement mandated for professional players to attain a certain rank at League of Legends before they do professional play.
Okay.
Which was considered that would, so that the thought was that might have been put in place to allow teams to basically scab like bring in other players that hadn't just
they're not in the
To
strike.
fill in for striking players.
from 16 to 7. Thank you, Azim Mesro.
I mean, I can kind
chat.
of see why you would, saying a thing. It's like, oh, we'll drop the team member requirement to like a lower number. So it's like then you don't have to spend as much money on trying to maintain a certain size of team. But now it means that you have a smaller roster to pull from when you want to actually establish a team of people.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, in League of Legends and esports in general, especially in North America, has really has taken a beating in the last little bit.
Yeah.
Possibly, in some ways, a correction from during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, esports got a bump because everyone was doing things remotely.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, especially in North America, a lot of players are not feeling supported in the way that they need to be, both in terms of support from Riot and also just like from a financial point of view. It's just like you have to be pretty high up before it's actually something that you can do as a career.
That's fair. Yeah.
I
and
imagine it's not a very long-term career either.
whereas some of the other whereas in the Korea or in some of the European leagues, there's quite a few, there's these farm teams and stuff where you can be on a farm team and that can be your job, as like you're making enough, you're not making a ton of money, but you're making enough to exist.
It's like AAA hockey or AAA baseball, where it's like I don't play in the I didn't go to the show, but I get to play professional baseball for most of my life. Even if I'm not doing it for $100,000 a year, I can do it for at least like $40,000 a year or something like that. Smaller markets.
And the Americat is posted that according to the LCS Players Association, the reduction in the dropping the NACL rosters and the team numbers impacted at least 70 jobs of players, coaches, managers,
people,
support people, as well as the players.
And that's in the development level league.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that specifically, like the article, like Polygon, I'll read you 2 sentences here. Earlier in May, Riot Games announced that it was removing a mandate that required LCS teams, so we have pro-level teams, to fund an NACL team in addition to its own LCS roster, right? So spread the money around. There's this idea of like we should do that, and now they're saying we're actually removing that. Riot Games said it was asked to do this by the team's ownership, semicolon. Each team paid $10 million for an LCS spot when the league franchised in 2018, moving from a promotion relegation system to having 10 permanent partners in the league. So basically being like, it's not about moving up and down. It's more about, oh, you want to belong to the LCS, you pay $10 million a year, that's your license to now be a professional team that always lives in the LCS. You'll always be a professional team. But as part of that, you're paying that $10 million, and that will be rolled into the development league so that we can actually be bringing players up from the bottom, and they afford for them to learn how to play the game and get better at it. And so basically once they remove that, so the company, Riot Games, framed the removal of the NACL mandate as a way for teams to, quote, unlock more operational and financial flexibility and, quote, support the continued long-term success of the team's professional esports ecosystem in North America. So it's like, okay, so they're saying that we did this because the owners of the teams wanted a way to have more operational financial flexibility, which is we want to keep more of the money.
Yeah, they didn't want to. It's a budgeting thing.
Yeah.
If we don't have to do that, all of that money can go over here.
Yeah,
where we actually want it.
We can keep that money to us. We can either pay more people who are playing the game, or pay more people who own the company, or run the company. And that idea of continued long-term success of the teams, it's like, well, yeah, if you have a larger nest egg to sit on, it means that when you have lean years like we've had in the last little while, then you have a little more money to say, well, we can afford to keep that pro team rolling. And I think that's what there is. If there has been a retraction in interest in league, but you still have contracts for people who are trying to play for you, it's like, I need to keep more money back for our team so we can afford to keep that staff together. Maybe that's the motivation.
Well, I mean, it's
if
one
you
of
want to
those,
be generous.
It's one of those things, right? A way to save money within a company is to fire people,
Yes.
because then you have that money that you would have paid them.
True.
It's not great,
No.
but it is a way, and that's why you see layoffs and things quite often.
But another way to do it is to say, I'm going to cut outgoing costs, and so that's what they're doing, is saying, can you please get rid of this mandate that we have to be putting money into this development league? And in a way, I can understand at the pro level why you're saying we don't want to have to put money into the development league. The development league should be able to fund itself. But how do you get people interested in putting? You need a lot of sponsors to put money into a development league that aren't already putting into a pro league.
But then, they also said that Riot Games also said that they wouldn't be changing that in 2023. So
Yeah.
anyway, the end result of these negotiations is that initially Riot has said that they are going to be delaying the summer LCS League Championship Series.
Okay.
They have also said that they are prepared to cancel it.
Okay.
Like cancel the North American, this year's North American League.
They keep the one running in like South Korea and other places as well. I imagine.
Well, I mean, if you have too many people unionized at a Walmart, they'll just shut it down.
Yeah. That's fair.
So I guess it's in some ways it's a bit of a calling the bluff or whatever, right? It's like, we don't need you.
If you guys aren't going to play the
Who
game,
needs who more, right?
Yeah, it's true. We can keep selling League,
Be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, the idea being that the North American audience or whatever is not worth enough for them. I don't know.
That's a balancing act of financials that I don't feel like we'd have that knowledge of, but it would be interesting to see if they actually have to cancel or if the walkout proves effective.
Yeah. Speaking of people who've decided certain parts of the world aren't worth the cost, Nintendo eShop is shutting down effectively in Russia. Obviously, we talked about Nintendo has been shut down from a retail point of view.
Yeah, they were just
for a
they
while.
still had like a little bit of an operation thing running for.
There was that weird sketchy operational
Yeah.
thing. But theoretically, Nintendo has been out of Russia for a while now. But you could still buy things on the eShop. But apparently that's going to be that's shutting down as well from May 31st. So it was already shut down now.
Right, so it's going to be a thing of you're going to have to try to make an account that comes up as under a different market. Because the Russian market one won't exist.
Yeah, you'll still be able to re-download stuff you've already bought, but it'll not be possible to make any new purchases or use download codes within the Nintendo eShop in Russia. they also said that payment information tied to Nintendo accounts such as credit card and PayPal details will be deleted for security reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you can't
Nice.
use it anyway. Yeah, this is part of that whole companies pulling out of Russia with the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, presumably this is. I would guess that this is less like we're pulling out of, because obviously they've already pulled out from retail operations. But I would guess this is more that we can't, because we pulled out for retail operations and stuff, we can no longer sort of guarantee the that the eShop service in Russia is going to like stay at the level of quality that we want it to.
Yeah,
sort
I
of thing.
guess. Not sure. I mean, it
they
could
said
be-
as a result of the economic outlook, Nintendo of Europe has decided to wind down operations in the Russian subsidiary.
Oh, yeah,
I mean-
that sounds a little bit more like we kept that part up, but
And it's like, weirdly enough, when we pulled out all our retail operations, sales of Nintendo stuff went way down. So, yeah. Boop, 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 boop. Speaking of Nintendo retail stuff, there's two new Pokemon Squishmallows coming out. Yay!
what do they look like, Paul?
They're two special new evolutions or new things that nobody's ever seen before. Piplup and the amazing winking Pikachu,
Pikachu gets too much airtime.
which I'm pretty sure is not like an evolution of Yeah, I just for some reason I like this story because it was like it's a new Pokemon. It's winking Pikachu, which is a new entirely different Pokemon that no
Yeah.
one has ever seen before.
Well, if this is all of the Squishmallows, let's see. Pikachu, meh, on both accounts. Piplup is fine. Looks basically just like Piplup. Togepi, I think, suits it because of the egg shape.
Yep.
Gengar's clearly the best.
Yeah.
Snorlax is fine. Snorlax is very cute.
Snorlax is fine, although I feel like Snorlax doesn't work very well less than 3 feet tall.
Yeah, it's-
Like
yeah.
Snorlax is great as a beanbag. It's like Snorlax needs to be just like a giant thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could at least at one point get the giant like bed or chair of Snorlax.
Yeah. Like a
Still
little,
buy his skin
like a
on
mini,
AliExpress.
a mini Snorlax just seems wrong.
Well, I mean, Munchlax is very cute.
Yeah.
And smaller and might work with that better, but the shaping of what Munchlax looks like versus Snorlax might not work in the Squishmallow style.
Yeah.
Gengar's still clearly the best, though.
Gengar definitely seems like he's up to something.
Oh, Gengar is an absolute gremlin. I love him.
It feels like it's like, remember the merch from Penny Arcade? Because Penny Arcade released those plushies where it's like it was the merch on one side, but if you flipped it around, it was the whatever that abyssal dark being is. That if you don't buy enough stuff, it turns into.
Oh right, like the.
I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it just feels like if you were to turn the Squishmallow Pikachu around, it would just turn into the Gengar on the other side. Which would actually be a funny way of doing these, is to be like, yes, it's
The
Pikachu on one side, but if you flip it around, it's another one.
The Flesh Reaper.
I mean,
right?
Flesh Reaper,
they
thank
probably
you.
do a Popple
Oh yeah, you can do.
rather than the two-sided pillow thing.
Yeah, so you have a bunch of like regular animal Pokemon, and then when you flip them inside out, it's all ghost Pokemon on the other side.
I will say,
That's how ghost Pokemon happen.
winking as much derision as I give to winking Pikachu as a separate thing, that same expression, but on Gengar's face, like winking Gengar would be
Oh, it'd be great.
It would be,
highly
yeah.
questionable.
Gengar's perfect.
Be like, oh no, what happened? Why is Gengar so happy?
Gengar
alleging
also
something.
has the best Build-A-Bear as well, because it came with sound effects and it had like 5 different ways it said its name.
It's just Gengar.
Yeah, you can go. Usually usually when they do that, you can go to the product page and play the sound clips of what it's supposed to sound like. It's great.
Oh, Activision.
Blizzard, Nintendo, or no, Microsoft, Activision, buying them.
You're gonna just say a bunch of names.
I'm gonna say a bunch of names. Any two, if I just name two companies, the chances of them having at some point attempted to buy one another is relatively high in the video game industry. But right
it's
now,
less likely a Nintendo thing most of the time, but
You're-
sure.
but right now we're talking about Microsoft, Activision. Now Microsoft, you know, there's been all this stuff about various regulatory agencies coming out and for and against the acquisition, and Microsoft having some rather strong words about, well, they clearly don't understand the industry, blah blah
Oh,
blah
exactly.
blah. They don't know what they're doing, and it hurts. It hurts that they're saying that corporations are not welcome in their country.
Right.
But now Activision has also come out against the UK regulatory block of the Activision Microsoft merger,
Okay.
saying that their markets authority has come to the flawed conclusion, and it was variously unlawful, irrational, and or disproportionate, and arrived at in a procedurally unfair manner.
Oh, interesting.
Was it unlawful?
Yeah, that's the
I mean,
word that I would take the most issue
I
with.
mean, I can understand someone using words like irrational and disproportionate, and maybe you could make an argument, but
But to accuse,
was it unlawful?
to accuse the UK bureaucracy of acting in an unlawful way, it's like
I mean, at that point, you should have some proof.
It's like, I am the law.
yeah.
Also, the procedurally unfair, to me, like, it sounds like they went through a very extensive procedure.
Yeah.
There's like a document that's like a very, very large number of pages long.
Yeah.
I'm so used to hearing procedural generation in terms of stories like that, like for video games, that my brain was just like, procedurally unfair is now in your video game.
Like I've
I've definitely played some games with procedurally unfair generation. It's like, what the hell? There's a door there? That doesn't make any sense.
So it's the UK's Competition and Market Authority.
Yeah.
So that's the people who basically have to make a decision as to whether or not like they have to they're a regulatory body that would have to try to preserve competition within their own market, within the UK market, and there is something called the Competition Appeal Tribunal. So I imagine that's where you're going to see the CMA come to the tribunal versus the companies that are trying to merge, and to be like, we need to have a discussion about what it is you're trying to do here. And so it sounds like the tribunal sided with the CMA, and so Activision is mad at the CMA, but I don't know if the CMA controls the tribunal or not, or if they just say, you have to come to this thing and we have to figure it out. I'm not really sure how that works. But yeah, there's a little bit of, to me, maybe there's a little bit of, it's the free market, I thought, and we're allowed to do whatever we want because it's how it works in our country, and our country is the country that is all countries in the world. Like, there's that kind of idea of like, you walked into the wrong saloon here, my dude, and there are different rules that apply to this location. You don't just get to come in and say, I get to do whatever I want, and why are you even telling me that I can't? So, yeah, and when you are a global company, I guess you do have to play this game in multiple markets and do it over and over and over again until either you get what you want or until you don't get what you want, and then you can throw a fucking fit about it like you're doing. But, yeah.
I mean, we talked about this, that what was kind of interesting about this, the UK's objection, is that it was not based on Call of Duty. It was not based.
Oh, good.
It was not. It was more based. It was based on around cloud gaming. It was saying that cloud gaming, this would effectively give Microsoft, who's already sort of in the forefront of cloud gaming.
Yes.
This would give them an effective monopoly on cloud gaming.
Yeah, which seemed to be a hell of an argument when we heard it.
Which was an interesting argument, that they were sort of going in a different direction than a lot of other regulatory authorities are.
Yeah, to have that kind of idea of like, we're seeing 10 years into the future and it seems like this is the play. Like we're looking that far ahead and being like, this is a much bigger deal than just Call of Duty. We expect that cloud gaming is going to get very, very big. What was Activision's stance on that?
So Activision says cloud gaming sucks.
Yeah, well, all right.
Yeah, I mean,
Hope you don't feel bad about that, Microsoft.
Yeah.
I take a little. Well, there's like one quote in this article that says gamers want to play games. Sure, agree. They don't care whether they're downloaded or streamed. I disagree.
Entirely true.
I disagree that I think there are some gamers who do care if they download them or stream them if their internet is poor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not every place is fiber.
They're saying, cloud gaming is a niche technology that most consumers can either get games by download or physical disc because running the game on local hardware gives them a better experience. So yeah, again,
gaming departments just being like, stop talking.
Again, we have the funny thing of companies when they're talking to regulatory authorities as opposed to their own shareholders, they have to downplay the part that they usually sort of big up. So they're like, not only is Call of Duty
It's definitely not a popular game.
Yeah,
at
Call
all.
of Duty is like a mediocre shooter that is pretty similar to basically every other thing else
The
out
thing
there.
that we're working on, nobody actually wants to work on.
And then also cloud gaming, which we've been spending billions of dollars on, is kind of and nobody really likes that.
Which
either.
is what they're telling me is that all of these big companies should just be coming to ChillPoint to write all their legal opinions.
I don't know.
Because we have been talking about this for a while.
It would make the legal document a lot shorter anyway.
It sure would. And a lot angrier. And funnier, yeah.
It'd be funnier.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much funnier because they're doing a good job on that on their own sometimes, but
So anyway,
I feel like we would get overpaid and underpaid at the same time.
Now,
Just because I don't feel like we should get paid too much for legal advice.
no.
But I do feel like they would probably pay us more than they should.
Can we set up like something that looks like ChatGPT, but it's just us behind the just make them think that it's but it's just us sitting there typing the responses.
We do this the Snoopy way. You put out a piece of cardboard, it'll say ChatGPT on it.
Oh yeah.
But the T will look like an I so that we don't get in trouble.
Right.
And it'll have like a cost associated with it, but there'll be like a little window where we make the paper come out.
The AI is in 5 cents.
Yeah.
Where does that actually just because
Can we?
I mean,
Can we ask for more than 5
we
cents?
already have. There's already like Amazon Mechanical Turk and
That's
stuff,
right. Yeah. Just LRR mechanical jerk. So Activision right now can't move forward with this merger because the CMA is saying we're not going to let you guys move forward with this merger. So there's going to have to be some new round of negotiations and figuring shit out.
I guess
no one's giving up.
I'm not entirely clear like what it means if the US and the EU and everybody else says it's fine, but the UK says no.
Yeah.
Whether that scuppers the whole thing or whether it's just like, okay, we merge everywhere except the UK, I guess, or how that.
Or we wind up our operations in
how
the
that
UK,
works.
and then we don't operate in the UK. We become one big company everywhere else that we do our business. Because ultimately, it is down to where do you do your business. And if the idea is that we're a global company and we have studios and operations in all these different countries, it's like, okay, well then we're moving all of our operations out of the UK into Ireland, and then we will do a merger, and then we will sell our games in at like fucking Tesco's, and that'll be fine. And you guys have to put up with that because that's the way it is. We no longer employ anybody in your country. That's what it sounds like is going to happen.
Anyway. Silent Hill. Just a name that evokes excitement and also trepidation for many gamers.
Dread. So much dread, depending on who you are.
Yeah, because it is a very, very exciting or a very popular series. It's also had some rather unfortunate entries into that series. But there's an exciting new thing coming out called Silent Hill Ascension.
Oh, so like a new Silent Hill game.
It's a new Silent Hill
Okay.
sort of game.
Wait, why did you say sort of? Why did you say
Because
sort of, Paul?
the new idea for Silent Hill is it's kind of a multimedia thingamabobber rather than a game in particular.
Okay.
So the plan is
They could just send someone to
This-
my house.
like this
I don't
sounds
want that.
this sounds like something that will either not work at all or be very confusing, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So they're going to be it's sort of a combination of like a streaming series but also a video game where the game you're able to they want to do like a Twitch plays Pokemon thing where like so there's an original thing
So
that you're
when you say
watching
streaming, you mean like
streaming
Netflix?
TV show.
like streaming online.
Streaming a video game.
Yeah, streaming a video game, except it's not a video game people have played before. So it's basically like streaming a TV show,
Okay.
but it's in the game.
All right.
And what the characters do will be controlled by like the chat in like a chat plays Pokemon kind of thing. Twitch plays Pokemon kind of thing. So
It'll be computer animated, play out over weeks and months, and it's molded by player interaction.
Yeah.
It's like sitting in a
So-
movie theater and everyone voting on what's the next step.
but so both live and also between episodes stuff.
Okay.
Is
And-
there any point where they do a replay? Like, is this like a you have to be there when it?
Well, no, so that's what I'm saying. There's going to be the live part. There's going to be live stuff, and then there's also going to be like you can watch it and vote on things that will happen. So there's going to be two parts, both
okay.
aspects
All
to
right.
that.
Okay.
There will be sequences that will be streaming live where the audience is going to see characters in danger and are going to be able to help assist them in real time through
It's
the video
nice that
stream.
they think they're gonna help those characters.
You will be able to see your input and the rest of the audience's input, and the characters might not survive some of these sequences.
Might
So-
not.
Not.
Might not.
So my question to these people is that can you write a story in which every character dies immediately
It's gonna be a
whenever
short
they are
story.
challenged in any way?
Isn't this just like? Isn't this what basically what like Telltale Games was doing, where
Yeah.
they put out an episodic thing and then you
In
played
fact-
it, and then depending on what like the majority of choices were affected the next episode.
Well,
In some
Except,
ways,
like,
yeah.
without the
Except people, yeah. Except people were playing it single player. It was
Yeah,
just
but
what
so it was like
the
an
aggregate.
aggregate of choices.
I know how this is going to work.
Everyone's gonna die.
No. They're going to lie.
I mean, there's that.
They're going to
you're
have
gonna
programmed
have
this whole
to.
thing from one end to the other. Everyone will get to vote on what happens, and if something happens that they're like, that didn't work, it's like, great. Flood the ballot box with 6,000 extra votes that says that the thing that we want to have happen will happen. So we have plausible deniability, and then there we go. That's how we get to the next part of this whole thing.
When we talk about how we actually don't know how the show is going to end, we mean that. We've set up multiple main characters who are going to go through this nightmare of Silent Hill Ascension. We need multiple mains because as the audience decides what's going to happen, you saw some of this in the trailer, as the audience plays, when that character is going through that hallway and there's arms are grabbing them or whatever, you're going to have QuickTime event like buttons that you need to tap. If enough of the audience fails, they'll be killed in that sequence and they will wake
Wait.
up with reduced hope. So maybe that's like a dream thing, I guess.
This is just gonna be like watching us all play the Quarry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then you have Adam playing and trying to get everyone to die or something.
Yeah, or Serge forgetting that he has to hit the button a second time.
Or there's there was a
Just missing it.
there's actually an interesting show on TV called Defiance.
Mm-hmm.
That was it was a sci-fi TV series, but it had a kind of an idea of this as well because it was a sci-fi TV series, but then there was also a MMO, and the pitch was that stuff in the MMO would affect the plot line of the sci-fi series.
I see.
And vice versa.
Right.
The issue was that one, the MMO was not that successful, so they were like, "What do we do about this? We have to turn off the servers." But also, it was like a real TV show, So the production schedule on a real TV show is such that it's like they're shooting months out.
Yeah.
So it's not like they could have like super reactive things happen. So I think people were a little disappointed in that. It was kind of an interesting show.
Yeah.
Not Kevin Sorbo.
I feel like unless one of those main characters is a dog, the entire chat is going to purposely let all the characters die.
Yeah. I remember my favorite chat play or Twitch plays thing was Halo.
Mm-hmm.
In Halo 1, at the very beginning, one of the very first things that happened after the like, here's how to move your mouse thing, is that there's some guys there in the first area. There's a thing that you have to walk across. There's like a bridge, and that's it. That's as far as Twitch. They could not get across that because the objective they had to walk straight across the bridge, and every time somebody would push left or right and they would fall off the bridge.
Yeah.
There was no, like, the only way they could get across the bridge was to go completely, like, the guy had to just, like, take control and move them across the bridge.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now we've done it.
And then those guys, and then when they start again, it's like, okay, cool, back, left, back, left. You know, it's like that kind of shit just continues. There's always going to be people who are spoiling the process because they want to see what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's also because I've watched a couple of different streamers set up like the Pokemon Twitch chat experience, and what you end up getting a lot of the time is people who are all trying to actually move in the right direction, but because several people have put in the same input, people go too far and then they can't get back, and then they're trying and
like you don't have to even have
like you don't have to have anyone doing anything on purpose to make it bad.
Like there's trolls is one thing, but even people trying to do things legitimately,
I've even seen it occasionally where the person who comes in who's trying to troll ends up overcorrecting in such a way that it actually helps.
And then and of course also from a narrative standpoint, the idea that it's like you can't have, and this happens sometimes in video games, right? Like if you make a video game where anything can happen all the time, then you basically have no narrative, right? Like you can't have stuff happen if people could be just wandering around doing anything everywhere all the time.
Right.
And so, like, even if this does work, the idea that you have to, like, you can't have anything sort of meaningful connected to the characters if they could just randomly die at some point because people in the chat were idiots.
This is this is fascinating because it's like, so the question is, okay, well, where are you going to stream this? And they literally ask them, where is this going to be streaming? And it's like, think of our company and like an interactive version of Netflix. Oh, so Netflix, because Netflix has done this before, where you can pick endings and branches.
Yeah,
except it wasn't. That was like all preloaded though.
Yeah,
they have it all done.
It's very choose your own adventure in a visual media.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you'll be able to stream this on Ascension.com.
We're also going to have apps and console builds. So
you can basically
Netflix, not actually Netflix.
You can access it anywhere that Netflix gets access.
Wait, no, I need to read this next question. How are you going to make money on this? Is this a subscription? Do you pay for an app? How does this work?
So we're not answering the specific business model questions yet. Oh, that if we just stop there, that'd be really funny. But they literally say it's not going to be subscription based and it's not going to be a fixed price. We'll get into that a little bit later. But you'll not pay $70 and you're not paying $9.99 a month. So I'm like, okay, you're paying per episode, or you're paying per choice, or you're paying every time you want to watch the thing. I'm like, it has to be a la carte. It's the only way that this makes sense outside of paying a full price for the whole
massive product
placement. Not subscription based and not fixed price is like a lot of how people monetarily pay for things.
Yeah.
If people don't all hit the button at the right time, then a massive bag of Doritos falls.
If you no, there's QTE in order to skip ads.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, everyone has to hit all the button at the right time, otherwise you have to watch a McDonald's ad. Yeah. Everybody has to go like
This is going to be a lot of work. It's a really big deal. I think it's awesome that people are going to try something new, and I think it sucks that it's going to not work. I hate to be cynical, but
I mean, we say it won't work. It seems like it shouldn't work.
I don't know. Well,
I want to leave the 1% possibility that it just does.
There's this weird God, it is very cynical of me to say this, but I'm like, if this was ever meant to work, bigger players would have been able to make it work by now. The fact that it's Silent Hill, I don't think gives it a special grandiose kind of
I'm not saying that
thing
makes it
that it'll make it happen.
It's just a saying. I want to leave that little tiny possibility of maybe it just does.
And imagine if it does, that would be astounding.
Yeah.
For every 45 minutes of cinematics that we're producing, 15 minutes are branches that you wouldn't see. Right now, it looks like there are a minimum of 36 different potential endings, depending on the states of the characters by the end of it. The initial run of the show is the canonical run, but when we're done with that, we're going to rerun it, kind of like New Game Plus at accelerated speed. And canonical decisions will be blocked off, and they'll have different.
Oh, okay.
Because if we made all this stuff, we want everyone to be able to enjoy our box text. So no matter what, you're
I feel like
to see the other bits.
We're looking at this and we're like, oh, this could just fail poorly or spectacularly, but failure, right, is the majority of what we think will happen.
So I do
and I'm like, yeah, and that's partially why I would if this was a thing where I was like, oh, I get to do a project, and can I do the one that might spectacularly fail?
I mean,
can I do that?
The
project?
first one.
There's also the you could definitely do, and especially I guess we'll see once they the other thing that of course people do all the time in video games is the illusion of choice. Right, you can be have 3 characters, and it's oh, which one's gonna die? But whichever one, because the characters, are relatively generic, whoever gets through does the thing.
Yes.
That is the next part of the plot, and it doesn't actually matter for the plot which one does it.
And if in the first playthrough, every character is killed because everyone's like, well, let's see what happens, and they just basically and the audience 90% agrees on kill every character at the first opportunity. They'll be like, great, thanks for an excellent season 1. In season 2, which will be starting up in about 10 minutes, all the choices to kill all the characters in their first round disappear. You can only get through it from this point forward.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, right?
So there's no harm in actually fucking with them the entire time, because you'll always get to be able to see the parts where everyone succeeds.
Some visual novel adaptations, maybe they're not visual novels, but manga that have that kind of thing where there's technically several different endings.
Yeah.
Will do versions of the storyline that have different endings, and then mostly what you see is a lot of people fighting about which one's canon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. There's definitely ways that they could do it. It's one of those things that I feel like it's either not gonna work, or it will work because it's actually way less exciting than it seems from this description.
Yeah, it could be a thing.
I could see a version of this that would work, but that version is not that interesting to me.
I hope there's a follow-up on this story, because it being a horror game is definitely one of the big reasons why I wouldn't want to go check it out.
The reason why something like the Carmen Sandiego on Netflix, where you get to choose your own adventure kind of thing, and I think really the reason why Choose Your Own Adventure works in the first place is because it's down to the one person who's playing it. That your internal motivations to do a thing, when you bought a book and you're reading it, or you took it to a library or whatever, and you're reading the book, is I want to get to an end. I want to get to the end where the game, where the story's probably. I want to see a whole story. Mm-hmm. But when you're griefing, when you're in a larger environment with a lot of people who are I'm only here to kind of ruin the experience for everybody else.
Watch the world burn.
Yeah, right. That kind of idea. It's there is a different motivational factor, and it's brought on by the fact that multiple people are involved in the process. And it's why you can make this work as a single person endeavor is what makes something a game, or with branching storylines, versus why you cannot make this work as a multi-person adventure is because not everybody wants to be on the same page when that kind of thing is happening. There's a different motivation that comes forth with people.
All right. Well, last story talk about. We talked a little bit about Diablo 4 with the Q&A thing, but Diablo 4 is out now, and it's got it's got all sorts of fancy. Diablo has a lot of reputation for it's got the fancy item generation system. I don't know if Diablo was the first one who did that, but the
Kind of the best known for it.
intrepid battle axe of the boar kind of mixing up things. But they also, which is something I think happened in Diablo 3 as well, have special items that in some cases are sponsored.
Yeah.
So for instance, for Diablo 4, there's the sweet KFC set.
Is there chicken in it?
Not really.
I'm not seeing chicken. What is with this theming?
There is the vessel of the 11.
Just give
Secret herbs and spices.
Just give me a stick with a chicken on the top.
The dread pheasant slayer.
Okay, that feels like it's on brand. You're killing some sort of poultry or whatever. Mm-hmm.
The thrumming axle.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Again, I just want a stick with a chicken on it. And not even like a cooked chicken. I want like a live chicken that will balk at people.
Ah.
In there's a game called there's a space adventure game or a space game where you one of the things that you get is a stick with a chicken tied to it. It's some sort of invulnerable chicken that they don't just explain why it's invulnerable, and the use of the chicken is so that you can like if things are like electrified, then you can poke the chicken at them and it'll go like and it'll discharge.
Great.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite Keyblades I've seen so far, because I barely play Kingdom Hearts, is literally a stick with a little crab on the end of it. I want more of that. If you're gonna do a KFC thing, I want like a silly bucket hat, and I want like a weapon with just a chicken on the end of it, or
so what you're saying, more
maybe
animals
some sort of,
tied
like,
to sticks as weapons.
some sort of coleslaw confetti you get to throw in the air. Like, come on.
I'm trying to understand. So, the thrumming axle, they say, is meant to be a reference to a multi-chicken rotisserie. KFC doesn't rotisserie cook their chicken.
No.
They
It's true.
deep fry it. So that's weird, but fine. The Hand of Gallus. Gallus is the genus of domesticated chicken. Chicken don't have hands.
Well, not anymore. They don't.
I don't.
Don't you remember chicken hands?
Foul Reaper, I'm like, fine. The FOWL is how they should have spelt it, but
Yeah.
still, I get it. Foul Reaper is funny. But yeah.
There you go. They did do a rotisserie chicken.
They don't do it
93
anymore.
in 30% of the U.S. outlets.
Yeah.
It became available on May 29th. Now, make sure you have to sign up for your KFC account and then link your KFC account to your Battle.net account.
That's sure.
God, I don't like any of that.
I like the thing that says the KFC staff had no idea what fans were talking about when they showed up to ask for a code.
There's something about like there's
That's
always
a fun time at work.
Yeah.
there's always the thing when you like when you like buy a game on Steam or buy a game on like the Epic Store or the EA Store or whatever, where it's like, oh, you got to link your thing to the Ubisoft thing, or you got to link your Steam account. You got to put your Steam account in here to link them
your
together.
Subway account in here, and then make
Yeah,
sure your
and
McDonald's
then-
account is like this. And so,
But it's just like now you got to link your KFC account to your Battle.net account
which you got to link to your driver's license
for all
some
future.
reason.
So now all make sure that you're all set up for all the future KFC Battle.net
Yep.
stuff that happens
We're going to be doing this for the next 10 years. Sure you will.
every time. I mean, it'd be sweet if like every time you link the accounts together, and then like every time you order from KFC, you get like some in-game gold or
Ah,
something.
yes.
It
And
does say-
every time you like down a boss, you get like you know, whatever, $1 off a Happy Meal or
Oh,
whatever.
that's good. Yeah, I like that.
It does say
Based on
that you
game
have to
performance.
order a qualifying product.
Oh man.
I mean, that's they're always going to use language like that because if they ever, it's like when they say this promotion is only at participating locations.
Right.
It's because, especially in franchises, not every location's actually doing the thing,
want to
even
be able
though
to opt
most
out,
of them
yeah.
typically are.
Some McDonald's only sell spaghetti and blankets. R.I.P. Mitch.
Anyway.
I haven't heard him say that one.
Yeah. This McDonald's doesn't do McChickens. It does spaghetti and blankets.
I mean, they didn't do good pizza in the first place, so it's fine that pizza doesn't exist at McDonald's anymore.
Anyway, that's it for video game news for today. Thanks everybody for joining us. Sorry about the technical issues earlier in the day. We will hopefully figure out
that
why
machine.
that happened. But in any case, thank you very much for joining us. And we will talk to all y'all later.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.